excited to welcome Chris Creed today. He's going to be talking to us about all sorts of exciting things about events, specifically events that sell. Chris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I'm really pumped to be here. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I was just saying before we turned the mics on how, Chris, you look like an incredibly smiley human from all of your pictures and branding and social media, which is something I resonate with a lot.
Yeah, I like to smile. Smiling is my favorite. It's the best. It's better than the alternative, right?
That's right. I don't think you can be successful in business and also a smiley human. I'm a big believer in this. I'm wondering if you could. I've done a bit of social stalking, as I've said, because I'm really interested in this particular topic. I've never run a virtual event. I know there's a lot of people who have actually asked me about things to do with events and stuff online, and I've not been able to give any information. So I'm so glad that we have this connection now. And I'm wondering if you can talk to me like a brand new person who might be coming into your sphere. Why would somebody need to run an event, and how would they even begin down this path?
Well, that's awesome. So I, if you've ever been to an event, which I'm sure most people have, they're pretty magical. Something happens there that is really unlike anything else. I think we can all like point to an experience where we were at an event and something really cool happened that was unexpected. Either it was something on the stage or an interaction with somebody that you met there that totally changed the course of everything. So I tell people that events stand as like these mile markers, these like signs in our lives that mark important changes. I remember in 2012, I think it was. I went to an event with a bunch of creative entrepreneurs in Cabo, and we were at an all-inclusive resort. And that event I can like point back to that for like 1,000 different changes in my life. Like right after that, we bought our first house. We moved on and changed. My wife and I were photographers at the time. We completely changed the way we were doing things based on what we had talked about with people there and just dreamed up. There's lots of opportunity things like that. So I like to tell people that events are inciting incidents. So if you're like, like think about Frodo in the Shire, in Lord of the Rings. Okay. He's hanging out in the Shire. Everything's good. The grass is soft. He's not going anywhere. They got beer there, man. He wants to stay in the Shire because it's nice and comfortable. Right. So, but something happens, right? He puts on the ring, everything changes. He knows that he has to be the one to deliver the ring to be destroyed. So he leaves the Shire, the nice, comfy Shire, to go on an adventure. That's what that inciting incident is. And a story is, in a story, an inciting incident is when the main character walks through a door that they can't walk back out of. And we, as entrepreneurs, it's our duty to create those inciting incidents for people. And events are simply the best way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So I hear that from, photography being your background for you and your wife, super cool. And you had this monumental shift in direction for your business and ended up going down this events path. I would love to know why did you choose events? How did this happen for you?
Well, actually, so okay, let's go back. This was before this is like the beginning of last year when I really like went full bore with this.
Yeah.
So if I can tell a little bit of a longer story, I'll try to shorten it. So in a few years ago, I started a boutique marketing agency, and I was building funnels. I was running ads for people. I was doing their marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my first clients was a local theater, and they wanted me to sell out their shows for them. Right. So I was like, well, that's really cool. And they were like, oh, by the way, the theater doesn't exist yet. And I was like, okay, cool. So I can't go like post any pictures of the theater. There's no marketing for that at all. What am I going to do? So I came up with this idea to market the show, and it worked. And we ended up selling out two of those shows to a theater that didn't exist yet. Then we sold out a third show.
Wow.
And then we ran that playbook over and over and over again. Well, fast forward like 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. I think it's 12 months down the road or so. everything's going well. The agency's growing. I'm still working for them. And then I lose one of my biggest clients. It calls me on the phone. He says, "Hey, Chris, everything's going well. We just can't really implement things past where we to where we want to be right now. So we're just going to have to let you go." And just like that, it was $40,000 just gone. Right. And I was like terrified. Like all these kind of fears kept coming up.
Mm.
And that's when I got a call from a friend who was going to a conference. And she said, "Hey, I got this extra ticket. We want to come." And so I go to this event kind of reluctantly because I'm still kind of like confused. I'm like, it just really sucked the wind out of me to lose that. And I'm sitting there in the back of this event, and there's one guy on stage. There's 4,000 people in the crowd. And he's on stage and he's talking about something. He says, I'll never forget it. He was talking about movies, almost just like I was here, and he said, in the movie and in good stories, there's a point where the character is called to a destiny that they don't quite understand. And when
Mm.
he said that, I just like closed my eyes and tears started to well up. It's like, what is happening to me? And I opened them up and I looked at the one guy on stage, this one human being on stage, and I looked at the 4,000 people just transfixed watching this one person on stage. And then I like kind of closed my eyes again, and I saw all those 4,000 people standing up on their stages and impacting another 4,000 people. And I saw the exponential impact that the event was happening right in front of me. And that is the moment when I decided, okay, I'm going to take the skills that I've built from selling out shows, from being an event photographer, from being in theater and music and everything my whole life, to help people stand up on their own stages, sell out their own shows so that they can experience that exponential impact and help a lot of people. So,
That is so freaking cool. Yeah, it really sounds like quite purpose driven and originating from something that's had a huge impact on you. And I really do think that's how some of the most amazing businesses are born. So thank you so much for
yeah,
sharing that. That's awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's cool. So like from that, I started my own. I did my own first virtual event that went really well, and then after that, I launched a webinar, which I would also consider a virtual event. So we can talk about that kind of stuff
Yeah.
because that may
Yeah.
be anyway. But it just continued. Now I'm doing one-on-one consulting and yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. Do you know there's a couple of things I'm excited to not quiz you on, but ask you about. And it's really probably my inexperience in the event space. So I would love to know about there's a lot of noise in the online space, and I think especially for people who are either newer to the online space or are sort of on their journey of becoming, I guess, truly profitable and not just kind of turning the wheels and things are going there. And the what I've seen or an idea that I have that could be wrong is about webinars maybe not being having as much impact as they used to, and I
Mhm.
don't know enough to be able to comment on that. So I would love to know from your side, someone who's actually in the space who actually has that expertise. Do our webinars still the way to go? Is that still a way to impact people? Is that still profitable?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely still profitable. I was running weekly webinars last year, and they were going really well. And I'll tell you why I think that was for that webinar.
Mhm.
I think it was because I had an intriguing hook, which is hit or miss. You don't want to lean everything on that, but I think
Yeah.
it worked. Um, and I think it was kind of in a perfect spot where it was solving a very specific problem that people were all of a sudden thrust into, you know,
Mm.
with virtual events. Like I talked
Yeah.
to a lot of people. Most of the people who, I had teachers in that first course, and I had a lot of nonprofits in that were joining the webinar. I worked with a magician who was trying to build up his
Very
shows,
cool.
and a lot of theater people joined because it was, I was telling that theater story. So it was a unique time for that. So to say that, what I mean is, yes, they still work because I've done a few over the last couple months, and yes, you have to call out a specific problem. And I
Mhm.
I think the best headlines also have a bit that of you in it that is unreplicatable. So, for
Yes.
example, mine was 3 theater hacks that I learned from selling out shows for theaters and artists. And it
Ooh.
was some other stuff in there. I can't remember what it was, but it was very much like specific to me that nobody else could
Yeah.
replicate, right? So that's thing one. The thing two is that to help them and address a specific problem. Um, yeah, I think both of those things still work.
Mm,
And the truth of it is it's hard to get people to show up. The answer to that for me is to send really good content so that they know you're going to help them ahead of time. So like people sign up, then you send them a sequence of emails with videos in them of you doing almost like a pre-training, right? So you're giving them value before they even have a chance to show up to the webinar, and they're a lot more likely to show up.
yeah.
Um,
So
so
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really helpful and good to know. I guess the other thing that I would love to ask you, and I mean, the last 18 months has been such a roller coaster of accelerated learning for me, as well as personal development, and also a lot of the people I've been working with. So I'm interested to know for you what has been I guess the best and worst, because it's typically bittersweet, lesson that you have learned from growing your business over the last it sounds like this has been going for a couple of years now, but since I'm assuming since COVID
Yeah,
all
yes.
started. Yeah, I would love to know the best and worst lesson.
Okay. Best lesson was that when I show up, work and money tends to show up. I have the shirt on that says
I
show
was
up.
gonna say
So
I love this shirt.
yeah,
Best
I didn't even
entrepreneur
think about
shirt
that when I was saying it.
ever.
So, um, at the beginning, because so this was in January 2020. I said, okay, I'm gonna help people sell out events, and I'm gonna help them create this high ticket, like really cool experience in person event. And then everything shut down, and I was like, I don't know what the heck to do.
Damn it.
What am I going to do? Right, like I abandoned done for you work to fully bore into this, right? And so it was like that was an interesting choice that I made. So I what I did was I just started sharing like a literally I put on a show that was just that where I said I'm just going to teach everything I know. So I got on live at once a week for like an hour and just taught on a specific thing, like whatever it was. It was like one week I would teach on like free plus shipping funnels, and one week I would
Yeah.
teach on like how to be put yourself as the attractive character, right? So I was teaching all this stuff, and stuff just started showing up. And then that helped launch a second season of my podcast that I was really consistent with and interviewing people. And then on the tail end of that is when I launched my virtual event. And so I just built this like energy bomb that really helped make it happen. And then, like I said, right after that, I was doing webinar after webinar after webinar, just nonstop. And so, that's not like the fun answer because nobody wants to like do a ton of work. Um, but that is the answer. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two for me was something I learned recently, actually, from reading a book by Alex Ramosi. He wrote a book called $100 Million Offers. And in that book, he said this quote that kind of like knocked me over. He said, um, find flow, monetize flow, and then add friction. And what he meant by that was, right, to find something that people are saying yes to and like make it really freaking easy to say yes to, and then just do it. And what you learn by being in that mess with them is all the real problems and the real roadblocks that show up, and then start to figure out how you can creatively solve those problems where it starts to remove you. And that's just a tired different approach than like trying to muscle through a product or a course or a coaching program where maybe you can hustle and get some people in, and that's totally fine. 100% you can do that, but it would be cool if you were making like a ton of money while figuring those problems out, right? So that was another lesson in there.
That is possibly some of the best advice I've heard in a while, and I think that it's very easy. That a lot of the advice out there is to just keep going and muscle through and hustle and work, and yeah, you can do that, and it's difficult because in sales, yes, technically it's a numbers game, but if it feels like you're just constantly pushing uphill, then like you say, it might just be that you haven't found the flow, and it could be a lot easier if you took that step back to find that first.
Right. It's just that there is an offer that is going to be easy for someone to say yes to,
Mm,
right? And so if you find that, it's the same reason that what makes a good event offer sell. We want to make that like, so what I teach is that we intentionally build a virtual event to lead people through to get to a sale at the end if you want to. And if not, like whatever, we just want to leave them inspired. We
yeah,
want to give them some sort of action. So usually that action is to join your program or something, just like with a webinar or a virtual
yeah.
event or a challenge or whatever. And that offer just needs to be really, really easy for them to say yes to where you get to the end. They're just like, I mean, come on, I got to say yes to this. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested in only making those kind of offers now.
So cool. So cool. I guess off the back of that, what makes a virtual event awesome? Like what makes it amazing and epic and not just another thing that sits in someone's calendar that they just don't turn up?
Well, it's interesting. I was just talking to a friend about this, about like getting people to show up, right? Like that's the hard part, because I mean, the reality is, this is just the way it is, that if you're throwing a virtual event and it's multiple days, especially, it's going to trail off, like, because people aren't getting on a plane, they're not getting in a hotel room, they're not, they don't have that built-in excuse to show up. They're just at home, and maybe they stayed up too late last night. They're not going to show up, but I guess that can happen in a real event. You get what I mean,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
And so in order to get them to show up, like that's I he, it's the same thing answer to your question of what makes it awesome. I think great events take people from kind of where they are, just like a great program would. Take them from where they are to where they want to go, and then the event bridges the gap so that they actually get something real at the end of it, right? There's something that it's not just like, I hate being on webinars where they just like tell stories the whole time and I don't really even learn anything. I didn't get what I was promised. People are not here for that anymore. So like the answer to the other question earlier is like, why are
Yeah.
webinars working? It's because people are doing that, right? So
And there's a
virtual events are the
script for
same way.
that, isn't there? There's a script where
Yes.
everybody does the same thing and then they just get slapped with a big offer at the end. And I think
Yes.
that's the reason people are not showing up anymore. Or, what I meant by
100%.
people sort of not being
Yes.
on board that train anymore. So what you're talking about is actually leaving someone going to an event feeling really inspired and then
Yes.
wanting to take more action, which is a completely, I mean, it sounds logical, but it's a completely different way of approaching it.
100%, 100%. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to be intentional about the content so that we can help them break down the beliefs that we need to, but it does mean that it's going to be helpful, right? And they'll be able to see the path to the end. And that's why people will stay. So every day builds on itself. You start at the beginning and then step one, step two, step three. So like if you want the full result, you need to stay until the end. And so that's thing one. And thing two is like just to be intentional about like what are the things that are holding the reason they don't have this result right over here. And but people may not be able to see this, but from left to right, the event bridges the gap. The thing at the end is the result they want. The reason they don't have that is not because they might even know the things you're going to teach them that day. That's not why they don't have it. They don't have it because there's things holding them back. And so our job as marketers, and as you know, with selling, is just to help them get out of their own way so
Yeah.
that they can get what they want, right? That's it. And so the event is designed to make that happen
Yes.
in a intentional way that inspires them to take action, and a lot of times inspires them to say, "Wow, I have to move forward, and you're the guide who can help me get there."
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds so great. And I think if for someone like me then who has never done an event like this before, What would you say to someone who's thinking like, yeah, like it is something I could do, but I'm not 100% sure if it's for me or whether or not I have capacity or whatever. Like I'm thinking of all the people that I work with who provide a service and they're typically pretty busy, and like it sounds like it could be an amazing avenue for consistent leads and for consistent sales.
Yeah.
So what would you say to those people who are like, oh, it's kind of on my radar, but like I don't know whether it's going to bring
Yeah.
in the results or be worth it, if you like?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I just had this thought the other day that events are a lot like a book. It's one of those things where people say that, oh man, I'm going to write a book someday. Or I really want to throw an event, but they never really get around to it because it feels like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And the truth is that it doesn't have to be that way. And, so if you're worried about it being a lot of work, I would definitely say like, okay, well, we need to figure out how it fits into your business. Does it make sense to do it right now? Maybe it doesn't.
Mhm.
And so if it does fit in, if it makes sense and like you have a process that's working and you just need to put more people into it, for example, then, or an offer that's selling and it could sell better to a lot more people, then the easiest way, which is not really the easiest way, but the way where you don't have to be the one on stage the whole time, is to throw a summit. Um, and summits are not a lot of work. They are definitely a lot more work than you would expect, but you can piggyback on the backs of other experts and get a lot of leads. Now, so that's thing one. The other thing is, I would say, test it out, test the event idea out with a webinar and
Yeah.
just run some ads to it, create a really good hook, and um, test the content that you were going to test out, and then pitch the offer at the end and see if anybody buys, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
really cool. Um, Now you are clearly an expert in this arena. I would love to know what's next for you. So what are you working on at the moment? You already are killing it in the event space.
For me, it's just about like developing, okay, how can I make this easy for people? Because I do recognize that it's, a big undertaking, like to create the sales page and emails and like map all that stuff out. So, I mean, I'm working on perfecting that offer for myself so that it's an easy yes for people,
Yeah.
like how much of it can we take on to where it just is an easy yes for you. Like if you really wanted to make it happen, um, then how much of that friction can I take away and just create some flow to make it work. So I'm working on that and just I have some ideas for another event for myself down the road. But really, like right now, it's just about making connections and talking with people and helping people, just trying to create as much goodwill as I possibly can so that I can, you know, just
I love
get the
that.
word out and help more people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Same for me. Like, yes, it's business, and but I'm a big believer in connections as well, and just genuinely adding value to other people's communities. I think it's like I get a lot of pleasure from it as well,
Yeah.
just to talk to other people that are already doing other awesome things, and like the more people that we can tell about the things that we've learned, the better. Really, it's like you say, it's this positive ball of energy that can just continue to build. um
Yeah. I
yeah.
love that. I love that. Well, so tell me, like, what comes to mind to you when you think like, okay, if I were to do a webinar next week, or I don't know, like, you tell me, like, what would, as somebody who's in sales, like, what makes that transition into selling easier for people? Do you think? I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah. So if I was going to do a webinar, my whole proposition is around ethical selling. So
Mhm.
it similar to the offer being like almost like a no-brainer is what I work towards. So if I can't add a lot of value to someone, like I don't want to close someone, if you like. I don't want to close someone, not against their will, but if it's not going to be that they walk away and they're not just happy but like really happy, and they want to go and
Yes.
tell people about it, that to me is a win. And even then, and I always say to people, I don't celebrate a win or a close until somebody is recommending me to others, because it's not
Awesome.
it's not a win at that point. Just because someone has paid, I get clients that are like, oh, this person said they're about to pay, or they just sent the money, and I'm like, don't celebrate yet, because really our job just begins when someone hands over the cash. Like we then provide an epic experience. So that's how you build a sustainable business. So I guess the same principles apply. I haven't run a webinar yet, so I'll totally have to quiz you about this later, but I haven't run a webinar, but the same principles would apply when if I was to do something like that. It has been on my radar for I don't know how long, but I haven't done it yet. But yeah, in answer to your question, that's how I would transition. It would just, it'd be being honest with people, like, this is what this does, this is the outcome, and my job isn't done until that outcome is achieved. And you're telling other people about how we achieved this outcome together. So I think when you put that out there to people, they feel a lot more, I guess, like it's a transparent way of connecting with it. They're like, okay, this person's being transparent. This is my goal. It's not just to get cash from you, is to provide this result to you. And I'm very serious about that. So, and I think people are happier to buy under that circumstance.
Yeah, I think so too. Totally. So I think events can be the same way. In fact, that first webinar I was running, after every single one, even if people didn't buy, like I'd have a couple people buy on each one, right? Like it wasn't, it was the first time I'd ever done it. And it was, I would get messages from people like, hey, this was so great. I learned so much. And like, I intentionally started thinking about, like, literally I put a poster up in front of my computer. And right before I would go live, I would take a breath and open my eyes. And the poster said, show up and help people. And then I would just start talking. And that's all I cared about. Like, I didn't care about what was going to happen at the end. And if people asked me questions, I was just going to answer them. Like I did entire trainings after I did my presentation and the pitch, just on like Facebook ads or something. Somebody had a question, I'm like, yeah, here's what you do. Like I just showed it to them because I wanted, that exact experience for people to go out and like, I don't know if you know, did you ever watch The Greatest Showman? Do you remember that movie?
I so did. Loved it.
Love it. Okay. So I want to be like, not the real life PT Barnum so much, but the Hugh Jackman PT Barnum, right? So like where things are like everybody just wants to go tell more people to come, right? To the show, right? The show is great and is good enough to go talk about like what must be in the program. You know what I mean? So that is how I think people should think about it. Just show up, help people. Don't worry about anything else. And then people will want to buy from you as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and this t-shirt is just so perfect for it just always
Thank
comes
you.
back to show up and just do the thing.
Yeah.
Show up, help people do yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Now, I just want to wrap up here by saying a huge thank you, but also more importantly, if people want to get in touch with you and find out more about what you do and how you're helping people, what should we be telling them now?
Yeah. So Instagram is where I spend the most of my time. It's just at Chris Creed, Creed like the band, and Chris the normal way. So and so you can go follow me on there and connect with me there for sure. And if you want, I am like offering, like if you have this event idea, right? I just, like I said, in an effort of goodwill, am doing free calls for people just to assess for profitability. So basically, like, what are you thinking about, and how can we beef up that offer to make it more profitable? So if you're interested in that, you can just go to chriscreedcall.com. There's nothing there to buy at all. All you got to do is schedule a call there, and I'll call you and we'll talk on the phone.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, just a huge thank you for sharing all of your expertise and knowledge today. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And everyone, get in touch with Chris. If you're thinking of running an event online, highly recommend it. And we will definitely be keeping in touch, Chris.
Yes. Thanks, Rachel. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.